Our next speaker is the president of Tresensa. He's an 11-year veteran of digital marketing and entertainment for companies such as CoolSavings.com, DoubleClick, and Max Worldwide. He was employee number 1 and a co-founder of Tremor Video, where he managed the aggregation of thousands of video content producers, building Tremor's publisher base into the largest video ad network as ranked by ComScore. Here to discuss emerging mobile trends is Vincent Obermeyer.
Thank you, Vincent. Love your name. So welcome, thanks for coming. I think the point of this presentation is to really show the emerging trends in mobile gaming, but also the mobile web as a huge game development and distribution opportunity. With that, let me start off with a shameless plug of Tresensa, but really ignore the corporate stuff here and focus on kind of the gameplay in the background.
Tresensa, the leader in mobile web gaming. We provide the tools and services to create and distribute world-class HTML5 games to the largest audience in history. Our platform is frictionless and ultra-portable. Games are played with a simple click of a link, not a redirect to an app store.
These are all mobile web games.
From smartphones to tablets, the Tresensa platform powers some of the...
Like I said, I've never had a video presentation work. All right, so we can dispense with that and get into the presentation. Okay, here we go. So how many of you have actually ever played a game on the mobile web? Okay, pretty good. About a third. So just wanted to start off and define what mobile web games are. So they're games that are powered by mobile browsers rather than the native SDKs. And the big story here is this allows the content to break out of the app stores. We're not excluding app stores as a distribution model. You can wrap the mobile web game and launch it in the app store, but you're not constricted to the app store, which is the important point there. What's notable and emerging today is that the games built for the mobile web are actually comparable in quality and performance to native apps. They'll probably never surpass in performance, especially certain types of games. But from what we've seen at Tresensa, working with different studios to build mobile web games and working with big media companies to build and distribute mobile web games, the consensus is that it's very hard to tell the difference between a mobile web game and a game built native. And again, this is not going to be for 3D type games, but for a wide variety of genres. It's actually true today, so you can write that down. The games are performant on Android and iOS devices, Kindle Fire, some of the newer BlackBerry. So really is a cross-device distribution opportunity here. The games are 2D. WebGL would be great, and at that point, you can include a bunch more game genres as possible on the mobile web. And as Vincent said in the outreach, we feel that mobile web game development and distribution is the biggest opportunity today for mainstream game studios and developers. So where are mobile web games played today? You would think just on the mobile web, right? And they are, but it's actually, it's pretty much, there's a lot of different places. So it's on mobile web media properties. Again, giant media companies who want to have game content. As their audiences shift to mobile, they want to bring the game content from desktop to their mobile websites. Till now, they've been constricted to send their users back to the App Store to download an app for a particular media brand, whether it be a Disney brand or a Nickelodeon brand, Turtles or Legend of Korra. Now with mobile web, as users come and consume content on their mobile websites, they can now offer gaming content as well. In social networks, obviously, there's Facebook and Twitter, but there's probably 50 other social networks you've never heard of that are really embracing mobile web as a way to get users and mobile web games as a way to monetize in the same fashion that Facebook would. And these companies are contacting us every week from all around the world in literally every continent. And it's a big opportunity for game developers to distribute their games to audiences that they would never even know about. And again, the portability of the mobile web content is what makes that possible. They're going to take their tax, but you're not double taxed with the social network and the app store that you would have to go through on mobile. Obviously, we can also, like I said, wrap the HTML5 mobile web games and put them in the native app stores for distribution there. The other cool thing is you can put the games in the App Store and then distribute them on the mobile web and on the desktop web with your App Store badge, so that you wind up getting free downloads and organic downloads that are not cost per. You don't have to spend marketing dollars to achieve downloads in the app stores of your mobile web games. Carriers are now coming out with app stores. They want to get back into the business of selling content on their phones. Companies like Verizon, who had previous to the iPhone release, made about $3 billion a year selling ringtones and games and other things via carrier billing on feature phones. Today they're able to do that with games as well because of the advance in mobile browsers, devices, and they can offer HTML5 mobile web games either on a subscription model or with microtransaction, all with frictionless payment similar to the native app stores. But the great thing about the carriers is when you distribute your games to them, they come built in with massive audiences. So again, you don't have to promote, you don't have to market, you just have to build your game in a way that they can distribute to their users. The other cool thing that we learned at TraceSensa is that there's also a demand for mobile web games within native apps. So there's a lot of native apps out there with very large audiences and without a particular way to monetize those audiences. So what they want is fresh content, and they want gaming content, and they want the ability to sell things to their users. And so the solution there, again, is mobile web games. And you wouldn't think that a mobile web game would be something a native app would employ, but native apps have browsers called, in iOS, called the web view, and in Google as well. So the games work within the native apps and can be updated frequently without doing an update through the App Store. And it's something that, when you're talking about emerging trends, this is something we're seeing in the last literally 2-3 months, where native apps with huge audiences want to use game content as a way to monetize. And the way to do that without updating your app and going through that process is by including mobile web gaming and leveraging the web view as a way to power that game. Within tweets, they're very portable. You just tweet a link to a mobile web game. There's no download. People just play it and retweet it. Within chats on messenger apps, a lot of the OTT messenger apps are now employing gaming as a way to monetize their services, and preloaded by OEMs. And really, the number one point is everywhere a browser exists, you can distribute and a user can play a mobile web game. So mobile web games very quickly are built using JavaScript, which is the most common scripting language in the world. So not hard to get a developer base to build your mobile web games. There's a growing list of game technologies for the mobile web. TraceSensa offers a free game engine SDK. There's Cocos 2DX, which is really cool, Construct, Impact.js, Phaser. The list goes on and on. Our VP of engineering always jokes, there's probably more HTML5 game engines than there are HTML5 games at this point. But we're hoping that will change soon. They're built by forward-thinking studios and developers who see the massive distribution opportunity in the mobile web distribution. We're contacted all the time by developers of iOS games that are really good, well-polished, nice games that are sitting in the App Store getting absolutely no plays whatsoever because they don't have the huge marketing budgets to drive the game into the charts. And so the opportunity to port that game to mobile web, it can then get distributed through all of the Flash game portals that are now jumping to offer HTML5 mobile web game portals, to those social networks I discussed earlier within native apps. And their games they're still in the native app stores, and they're going to see organic downloads from the mobile web game distribution that they're able to get by porting their game to JavaScript. We've provided and built some Flash animation exporter tools. So if you're a Facebook studio or a Flash game studio, you can still use Flash to build your character animations and a bunch of other types of animations, drop it into a Flash exporter tool, and it spits out a JSON file that works on the mobile web. It also does cool things like really optimizes the animation so that you're going to get great performance on mobile browsers. And the coolest thing from a studio perspective is you can build a mobile web game with one team and support all platforms. You don't need an iOS team and an Android team and a Flash team. You build your mobile web game in JavaScript, and it's simply going to work everywhere and on every platform. So who wants mobile web games? From a developer or studio perspective, You don't want to build a really cool JavaScript game, pop out a link and send it into a vacuum like, okay, that was cool. I built a game in HTML5, now what? There is a huge demand for this type of content, and mostly because of its portability and its ubiquitous distribution. So media properties want this type of content. We're a small startup in New York building this mobile web game framework for development and distribution. We're contacted by major media companies like Nickelodeon or HBO or NBC to build mobile web games that they can then put on their media sites, as I talked about before, and they're willing to pay you to do that. And so it's good from a work for hire perspective, and then there's other great distribution opportunities for a studio that just wants to build great games and monetize that way. Carriers, I talked about it a little bit before. Carriers lost a lot of revenue and a lot of revenue opportunity when phone content was funneled through the app stores, whether it's iOS or Google. Now they're really looking to gain some of that market back by offering their own game stores, their own app stores. And HTML5 optimized for the mobile web is how they're achieving that. And again, it's one of those scenarios where we're called and emailed and constantly queried by carriers around the world, whether it's Verizon here in the States or Claro in Telefonica in Brazil, or Deutsche Telekom or Vodafone, Saudi Telecom. I mean, companies that we would never have inroads to are kind of coming to us looking for mobile web game content that they can sell to their users either on a subscription model, which is really awesome for our developers because you don't have to build a freemium game. You can just build a really cool game and you're still going to get a check every month for those people that subscribe to the service. Or they offer microtransactions just like the App Store would. Flash game portals, obviously they're seeing a decline in users who are consuming media on desktop and moving more towards mobile in the app stores. Here's an opportunity for them to replace their catalog of existing Flash games with mobile web games and operate the same business model that they had been operating on desktop, but extend it to mobile. Cool thing is, all of these new games that they're building for the mobile web also play on desktop. They don't lose any content for the desktop audience that they still have, which is still really robust, obviously. Operating systems I skipped over, but what we're seeing in the mobile landscape, you're not seeing less fragmentation, you're seeing more. You're seeing companies building new operating systems for phones, like Firefox is building an HTML5 OS. Rumors of other big manufacturers doing it as well. And so what you want is the ability to produce content that will support and extend out into this increasingly fragmented marketplace, not focus all your efforts and attention on just one app store. Because as you saw with the iOS App Store, it was king. And you never would have thought that Android and Google, even as far back as, or as short back as last year, would gain as much market share and see games performing as well as they do from a monetization perspective. That will continue with other distribution opportunities and these smaller app stores and these other kind of long tail of manufacturers of devices who also want their own app stores. Social networks, again, I mentioned there's tons of new social networks popping up that really are mobile first social networks. Something obviously that Facebook is looking and succeeding in bringing their audience to mobile and monetizing there. But there's a lot of game-focused, smaller social networks that are country-specific they each seem to have between 10 and 20 million users. And it's a pretty nice long tail, especially when you consider that the monetization, the virtual currency, the advertising, all that stuff is there. All you have to do is pipe them your game and collect your money. And again, what they want is mobile web game content. They don't want the friction of getting a user, getting them to download an app, taking their share of that. They want the user to stay on their social network, interact with their users, and gaming becomes the background for social interaction on mobile. Messenger apps, we think this is a huge opportunity. It's the next Facebook or the next Twitter, but the OTT messenger apps, they're monstrous. I'm sure you're well aware of Kakao and Line and WhatsApp and Kik, but these are all free services. They need a way to monetize. They need a platform to offer content to their users and then a way to monetize that. So again, mobile web games are easy to plug in as a platform component into their huge user base, and then they can punch through to the App Store and offer in-app purchase, or they can simply subsidize via advertising. Brands and agencies, another great way for brands and agencies to communicate with mobile users, something they really struggle with today. You know, mobile ads are like the size of a postage stamp. You know, pre-roll video in mobile content is not very well received. You know, because on mobile, really, seconds are minutes and minutes are hours. You don't really want to sit through any advertising, and there's been a real struggle for brands and agencies to figure out, how do I engage users on mobile devices? What we found, and we've got direct experience working with brands like Progressive or HBO, is that mobile games are a great way to deliver your brand message to mobile users in a way that they're going to understand your message, recall it, but also appreciate the content that you're giving them. We see time per play on a car insurance game that we've done for Progressive up to 15 minutes. And users kind of tweeting about it or posting on Facebook, I can't believe I just spent 20 minutes playing a car insurance game. But the cool thing is, the #1 activity on mobile devices is gameplay. So why not give them the content they want in a way that is not very advertising-esque, but you can still deliver your brand message. Brand recall is fantastic in mobile branded games. So that's another opportunity for studios and developers to look at to say, how do I support that demand for mobile web content? And just think the total branded advertising budgets in this country are in the billions. There's a very, very good place for mobile engagement using branded games. And then web retailers. So everyone wants to sell content. Again, some of the most popular form of content that people are willing to pay for on mobile devices are games. So you'll see more and more the opportunity for these giant web retailers to offer frictionless purchase or frictionless in-app transactions using mobile web games instead of, again, just kind of sending people to the App Store. Why is this a huge opportunity? I hope I've communicated it somewhat, but ubiquitous distribution, seriously, you really can build a mobile web game and deliver it and distribute it and monetize it everywhere a browser exists. I've talked about desktop and I've talked about mobile browsers, operating systems, and within native apps, but there's this huge looming opportunity around smart devices that hang on your wall at home and are huge, and technologies that are being developed and built to provide game controllers and gameplay on those devices. And again, powered through the browser, you've got now a nice pipeline and plumbing in place to reach those devices and the massive audiences that use those devices. Frictionless payment, it used to be iTunes or Google Wallet or Play or whatever the monetization service is there, but now you're seeing, again, web retailers will get into it and offer frictionless payment. The various carriers, you click a button and it shows up on your phone bill, and your parents freak out in 2 months, but there's a lot of opportunity for frictionless payment outside of the app stores on mobile through games. And again, all of these smaller social networks have virtual currencies already in place, so they're handling that for you, and you'll get paid that way. Frictionless access for users, again, no downloads. There's a theory that convenience will beat performance any day. And fortunately, with the state of browsers and operating systems that support mobile web gaming, we hope that there isn't that cost on performance, but the convenience is great. You can send a link to your friend of a game you just played on your mobile device. They don't have to download anything, go to an app store, close out the app store, click on the game, open the game, then go back into whatever social networking you were doing. They just click the link and they're playing. I guess I'll skip down to the end because I just have a minute, but discoverability and portability, that's really what mobile web gaming is all about. The performance is there, the business opportunities are there, the business distribution opportunities are there. Here's some companies that support mobile web game distribution and monetization. On the bottom, Tresensa, Booster, Soft, Kick, Spill, Market.js, Clay. So there's a whole ecosystem emerging right now to distribute and monetize your mobile web games. And we hope that you get excited about it and evaluate that as the next big game distribution and monetization opportunity. I don't know if we have time for questions.
Yeah,
or
we definitely
okay.
have time for questions. So please, if anyone has them, you can pass the microphone around.
Yeah, raise your hand and I'll bring the mic to you. When you were talking about the different organizations that want mobile web games, like carriers and that kind of thing, how do you engage them? Let's say I had an HTML5 game. Who do I talk to, and how do I make that happen?
It's a great question. I mean, right now it is kind of a nascent ecosystem. There are companies that are content aggregators that are working on behalf of those carriers, and the carriers are now starting to hire content acquisition teams for that specific type of content. I'd say the best way is to work with one of the companies you see here. They'll help you get in front of those audiences, or just publish your mobile web game on a website. Put in the appropriate keywords, they'll find you. Like I said, there really is a demand for this type of content. If it's a good game, it has nice art, and it performs well across all mobile devices, chances are they're going to find you, and you can work out a deal.
Thank you for the talk. It was really informative. I just wanted to ask what you thought about the performance issues that occur within the browser. I mean, when we were building HTML5 games, it's really not comparable at all to what you can get either in an app or in HTML5 on a computer browser. So, I mean, how do you even explain that to the client that you can't really have sound effects on an Android phone? How can you manage that?
Yeah, so it's definitely, there's issues there. We spent a full year developing our game engine SDK just to perform on mobile. There's no kind of bells and whistles to it. It really was evaluating how do we get the most FPS, and how do we deal with all of that. So in terms of animations and performance, frames per second, it's really there for iOS, and I would say the Android 4.0s for sure. Safari and Chrome, the performance is great. Sound is an issue. The way we handle it is we either do background music or sound, but we're starting to get some really creative solutions from some of the developer partners we're working with on how they're handling kind of the multi-channel sound. It's not true multi-channel, but you can do background sound and sound effects as long as you kind of plan it right and stagger it throughout. But again, we worked with some of the bigger media companies, and the performance they were really blown away on how it looks. And if you want to see a good example, you can go to HBO and look at True Survival. It's a game we did for their True Blood franchise. Or within Nickelodeon's native app, you'll see a game called Legend of Korra, Republic City Rescue. They really do compare to native in terms of look and feel, art, performance, all of that. But you're right, sound is an issue, and our contention is the browsers will solve that problem in time.
I've got a question, if I could, Vincent. You were talking about, you had a slide back there, the bullet point, talking about how game portals or Flash game portals can convert their catalogs over to HTML5. I used to run both Addicting Games and Shockwave.com vast Flash game catalogs, and I can tell you that the picture you paint is sort of rosy in that without source code, that's impossible, and even with source code, it's an extremely time-consuming and expensive pursuit. So I understand, the future looks good, but today, in terms of what's on the ground, that is not a very realistic portrait to paint. So I'm wondering if you can just comment.
Yeah, no, I must have misspoke. Porting the games over, there's no magic solution. There's no, here, pop your SWF in here and click the button, now it's a mobile web game. And even the game design itself, it has to be a mobile design game to really be fun and effective. What I really meant is as they start adding new titles, it's interesting, like companies like Congregate, they have support for HTML5 games on their site, and we have one of our games is running there. But when you go from a mobile device, it's just really just pushes you to download a native app. Other companies like Spill or companies like Yeppy, BGames, Games.com, what they're looking for is to add, they're still adding Flash games to desktop, but they're looking for mobile web games to both put on their desktop and on mobile. So there's probably, I would say, commercially acceptable, probably about 250 mobile web games, which is really enough to get started in that environment. And then, we look to the development community to start embracing this as an opportunity to build mobile web games that will also work on the existing Flash desktop, community. But you're right. The best thing you can do is take the art, and then rewrite it in JavaScript, which helps somewhat, but there's no magic solution there.
Thank you. Other questions for Vincent?
I'm sorry, I missed the beginning, but could you tell us how do you deal with different screen sizes with HTML? If it's one web, then how do you scale from a phone to a tablet?
Yeah, that's, again, another tricky one. It's one we spend a good deal of time on, but that's handled through our Game Engine SDK. So we have device detection, and we start off with, I think, the Retina display size is the standard size. We've got one for portrait, one for landscape, and then we'll dynamically resize as we see the devices. In some cases, we will kind of have to employ a safe area where we explain in our SDK, here's the canvas size, and then we do put a little border of a safe area, maybe 10 or 15 pixels on the top, bottom, et cetera, to account for the different screen sizes. The good news is we set a bar, or not the good news, but the reality is we set a bar of Android 2.3 and up. So most of the smaller screen sizes are from the older Android phones, and you have to kind of draw a line in the sand and say, look, people are going to migrate to the better performing phones, and while there's still going to be a long tail of kind of lower end Androids, what we saw this year for the first time, and this is really important, is that the 4.0 OSs finally, in terms of usage, are now greater than the 2.3s on Android. So it's a good trend. And it's something where we're kind of developing for now and the future and not really for the past. But the SDK handles the screen sizing issues.
Thank you. That's all the time we have for questions. Please give a round of applause to Vincent Obermeier.
Thank you.
Sensei.